Rikers Island uncovered. What no one will tell you. Blood on the floor. Picture this. A prison officer pushes open a heavy steel door of a cell block on Rikers Island. The smell hits first, sweat, metal, and something sharp, like blood. On the floor lies an inmate, bleeding badly, but no one is talking. The other prisoners just stare. They don't shout, they don't panic. They sit in silence, as if this was just another day on the island. The officer demands answers, but nothing. The silence itself feels like a weapon. Here, secrets are currency, and silence keeps you alive. And that's the part no one tells you about Rikers Island. It's not just about survival. It's about surviving without saying a word. But how did it get this way? And what's really going on behind those walls that outsiders never hear about? The Island of Secrets. Rikers Island sits in the East River of New York City. From the outside, it looks like a collection of dull gray buildings. But inside, it's a different world, one built on fear, power, and silence. When new inmates arrive, they quickly learn the rules. Not the rules written in any handbook, but the ones whispered in the hallways. Don't ask questions, don't talk to guards, and never snitch. If you break those rules, the punishment isn't always from staff. Sometimes it comes from other inmates. At first glance, daily life on Rikers looks like any other jail. Food trays being handed out, inmates lining up for visits, officers doing rounds. But beneath the surface, tension simmers. Every look, every word carries weight. And then, without warning, that tension explodes. Chaos in the dorm. One evening in a crowded dormitory, an argument over something as small as a phone call turns deadly serious. Voices rise, fists clench. The officer on duty looks away for just a moment, and that's all it takes. Two inmates collide in the center of the dorm, others joining in within seconds. Metal bunks shake, fists fly, bodies crash to the floor. The noise is deafening. By the time backup arrives, the fight is over, but the damage is done. A man lies on the ground, blood on his shirt, while others retreat to their corners, breathing hard but silent again. The chaos is sudden, brutal, and then, just like that, it's quiet. On Rikers, violence doesn't build slowly. It comes like a lightning strike. But here's the secret. The fight itself isn't the real story. The real story is what happens after. Because at Rikers, every act of violence sets off a chain reaction, one that no officer and no inmate can fully control. And this is where the island reveals its darkest truth. The silence after the storm. After the chaos in the dorm, the floor is sticky with spilled food and drops of blood. The officer radios for medical help. But what's most chilling isn't the injuries. It's the silence that follows. The inmates sit back on their bunks, calm, almost relaxed, as if nothing happened. No one admits to throwing the first punch. No one names who held the shank. Everyone knows. Talking only brings trouble. A new inmate whispers to his cellmate. Why won't anyone say anything? The cellmate smirks. Because here, silence keeps you breathing. This unspoken code is what makes Rikers so dangerous. Fights happen, but the truth behind them rarely leaves the walls. Outsiders only see statistics. They never hear the stories. But that quiet doesn't last long. The boiling point in the yard. Days later, tension spills over again, this time in the recreation yard. On the surface, it looks like a normal afternoon. Men playing basketball, others pacing in circles, some leaning on the fence just staring out at the skyline of New York City in the distance. Then it happens. A basketball rolls the wrong way, bumping into the wrong group. Words are exchanged, sharp, angry. Everyone in the yard freezes, watching. They know what's coming. Suddenly, fists swing and the yard erupts. Officers rush in, whistles blowing, batons raised. But the fight spreads too quickly. Dozens of men crash together, dust rising from the concrete ground. One man goes down hard, his head hitting the floor with a sickening thud. The others scatter just as quickly as they started. In less than a minute, it's over. The officers drag the injured inmate out, while the rest go back to their silent stares. At Rikers, violence is never random. It's fast, it's explosive, and it leaves scars on the body and the mind. And what comes next will show just how deep those scars go. Lockdown tension. After the yard fight, the entire block is put on lockdown. Doors slam shut, the sound echoing down long concrete hallways. Inmates are confined to their cells, the air heavy with heat and frustration. For hours, there's nothing to do but stare at the walls or pace the tiny space. Some hum quietly, some tap their knuckles against the bars in rhythm. Others just sit, glaring at the floor. The silence feels thicker than the steel around them. On the surface, it looks calm, but underneath, the tension is growing. Everyone knows lockdowns don't just end. They end with consequences. When dinner arrives, trays slide through slots in the doors. Lukewarm beans, stale bread. A few muttered curses echo down the tier. For most, it's just another meal. For one inmate, though, it's the breaking point. Fire in the cell block, just after lights out. Smoke begins to creep from under one of the cell doors. At first, it's just a thin line, barely visible. Then flames. An inmate has set fire to his mattress. Alarms blare. Officers rush down the tier, keys jangling, shouting orders. The other inmates bang on their doors, coughing from the smoke. Chaos floods the block. The fire is put out quickly, but the message is clear. Desperation can turn into destruction in seconds. The inmate is dragged away, his face lit by the flashing red of alarms, while others watch silently from their cells. At Rikers, violence isn't the only weapon. Sometimes, fire itself becomes a way to be heard. And after this, the island will grow even darker. The Whisper Network. After the fire, the block is quiet again, but the silence is different this time. It's not calm. It's heavy, like everyone is waiting for something. Inmates begin passing messages through vents, whispers traveling cell to cell. Nobody speaks loudly, but the whole block knows what's being said. The fire wasn't just random. It was a warning. Someone is testing the system, and nobody's sure who will act next. Officers tighten security, but it only makes things worse. Strip searches, surprise cell checks, extra patrols. The inmates see it as harassment. The staff see it as survival. Everyone feels trapped, waiting for the next strike. The tension lingers through the night. Some try to sleep. Others keep their eyes open, staring at the ceiling, waiting. But by morning, the island erupts again. The breakfast ambush. Breakfast trays slide under cell doors as usual. Watery oatmeal, a hard-boiled egg, and bread. But when the doors open for chow rotation, something snaps. 2 inmates charge another man in the corridor, fists and elbows flying. The attack is fast, brutal, and planned. Officers scramble, radios crackling, as other inmates step back against the wall. The victim crumples, clutching his side, while the attackers vanish into the crowd before being dragged away in cuffs. The hallway smells of blood and food mixed together, the sounds of shouting echoing off concrete. It's not just a fight. It's a message. On Rikers, meals aren't just meals. They can be setups, traps, or even weapons. And once again, the island proves its cycle. Quiet, then chaos. Aftermath in the infirmary. The ambushed inmate is rushed to the infirmary. His shirt is torn, stained with blood, but his lips stay sealed. Doctors ask what happened. Officers demand names. But he just stares at the ceiling, silent. That's the code of Rikers. Even when you're bleeding, even when your life is on the line, you don't talk. Because talking brings consequences far worse than stitches. Back in the block, rumors spread. Some say the ambush was about a debt. Others whisper it was gang retaliation. No one knows for sure, and no one dares to ask. The air feels calmer now, but only on the surface. Everyone knows another storm is coming. The Visitation room eruption. A week later, Visitation Day arrives. For many inmates, it's the only glimpse of family they'll see for months. Mothers, wives, children, they line up behind glass partitions, waiting. At first, the room hums with low voices, laughter, and tears. But suddenly, a shout slices through the air. An inmate on one side of the glass locks eyes with another across the room. Old grudges don't stay outside, they walk right in with you. In an instant, chaos explodes. An inmate smashes a phone, receiver against a glass. Another leaps at a rival. Visitors scream. Officers rush in, dragging men away while children cry and press their hands against a partition. The visit is cut short. Families are pushed out. Inmates dragged back to their blocks. What should have been a rare moment of hope ends in panic and broken glass. On Rikers, even love and family can't escape the violence. And the worst part? This is only scratching the surface of what no one tells you. The price of silence. After the eruption in the visitation room, the prison feels heavier. Families who made the trip leave shaken. Children crying in cars outside the gates. Inside, the inmates return to their cells, silent once again. Some stare at photos of loved ones taped to the wall. Others sit in the dark, replaying the moments they just lost. In Rikers, visitation is supposed to be a lifeline, but it often feels like a reminder of what's slipping away. For the officers, the silence after the storm is the most unsettling part. They know it never lasts. Every fight, every riot, every outbreak leaves behind whispers, grudges, and debts waiting to be settled. And sure enough, the quiet is broken sooner than expected. Hunger as a weapon. The next morning, breakfast never arrives. The trays sit stacked, untouched, in the kitchen. Word spreads. A delay, a protest, maybe even punishment. Hours pass. Hunger gnaws. By midday, the truth hits. Food is being used as control. Some inmates are given meals, others aren't. Those who do eat find their portions cut short. Half a scoop of beans, one slice of bread. It's not the first time. At Rikers, food isn't just survival. It's leverage. Denying it sparks desperation, and desperation sparks chaos. Men begin pounding on their doors, fists echoing like war drums down the tier. One inmate, furious, floods a cell by clogging the toilet. Another starts smashing the window slot with his tray. Then, in a flash, the tier erupts. Doors bang, voices roar, and the officers scramble to contain the uprising. At Rikers, even something as basic as a meal could become the trigger for war. The flooded block. The pounding doesn't stop. Cell doors shake from the force of fists. Water begins to spread across the floor as more inmates flood their toilets in protest. The smell of sewage mixes with the heat, turning the block into a swamp. Officers wade through ankle-deep water, shouting orders that no one listens to. Radios crackle with static. Alarms echo down the hallways. From above, it looks like madness, but to the men inside, it feels like the only way to be heard. By evening, the block is drenched. Mattresses float, shoes soak, and the anger hasn't faded. It's only grown. And then, as if on cue, the power cuts out. The lights flicker, then darkness swallows a tear. Blackout Betrayal. The sudden blackout throws everything into chaos. Inmates shout, bang, and some even laugh, because in darkness, rules blur. In one corner, two rivals seize the moment. Hidden by the dark, they strike. A scuffle breaks out, bodies crashing against metal bunks. The sounds, fists, grunts, the scrape of shoes, echo louder than the alarms. Officers rush in with flashlights, beams cutting across the chaos. The light lands on an inmate slumped against the wall, his face bloodied. Others melt back into the shadows, silent, untouchable. When the lights finally flicker back on, the damage is clear. Blood on the floor, a stretcher called, and once again no names, no witnesses. At Rikers, the darkness doesn't just hide violence. It invites it. And the scariest part? The blackout was an accident. Someone on the inside knew exactly what they were doing. Power in the shadows. When the lights come back, the officers scramble to restore order, but the damage is already done. The blackout wasn't random. It was planned, and everyone knows it. Whispers run through the block. Someone controls more than just fists and shanks. Someone controls the power, literally. Inmates trade rumors about hidden networks, contraband cell phones, secret messages passed through laundry, even guards who look the other way for a price. These whispers remind everyone an ugly truth. At Rikers, control doesn't always belong to the officers. The tension lingers for days. Extra searches are done, but nothing is found. The island's silence swallows the truth again. Then, when it seems calm, the island delivers another violent reminder. Rays are in the shower. The showers are supposed to be a break from the suffocating cells. Steam fills the air, water splashing on concrete floors. But today it becomes a trap. An inmate steps out of the mist, and suddenly another man lunges at him with a sharpened piece of metal. A razor, melted into a toothbrush handle. A makeshift weapon. The victim stumbles, blood running down his arm. Shouts echo as others rush to corners, try and stay out of it. Officers fight their way in, slipping on wet tiles as they drag the men apart. When it's over, the weapon clatters to the ground, still slick with water and blood. The attacker is hauled away, screaming threats. At Rikers, nowhere is safe. Not the yard, not Visitation, not even the showers. Violence waits in every corner, and it strikes when you least expect it. The medical wing Mirage. After the shower attack, the injured inmate is rushed to the medical wing. On the outside, people think this is where help happens, where wounds are stitched and safety returns. But inside Rikers, even the medical wing carries its own shadow. Inmates sit in line, some coughing, others holding bruised ribs, but they wait for hours. Whispers float through the room. Don't say too much. Don't complain too loud. Some fear that being labeled a snitch, even in the doctor's office, will follow them back to the block. And then there are the guards. They stand close, listening, making sure every word is chosen carefully. The medical wing may heal bodies, but it never heals fear. The air is thick with tension, and then, just like everywhere else on the island, that fear explodes. Chapel turned battleground. Sunday service is supposed to be a time of peace. Inmates gather in the chapel, some sitting quietly with their heads bowed, others pretending to pray just to get out of their cells. The chaplain speaks softly about forgiveness and redemption. But in Rikers, grudges don't pause for religion. Two men exchange hard stares across the rows of chairs. One nods, and the peace shatters. A punch flies, and another. The wooden benches scrape against the floor as inmates scatter. A hymnal slams to the ground. Officers rush in, dragging men apart under the gaze of a wooden cross. The chapel, a place meant for hope, becomes just another battleground. On Rikers, not even God's house is off-limits to violence. And it leaves one haunting question. If there is no safe space here, then what truly keeps the island running? The hidden economy. Behind the walls of Rikers, survival isn't just about strength. It's about trade. Cigarettes, ramen noodles, candy bars, these become currency. A soup packet might buy protection. A honey bun could settle a debt. But this economy isn't just about snacks. It's about power. Gangs control who eats, who phones home, who sleeps safely. Officers know it exists. Some even look the other way. Because in a place this chaotic, sometimes order comes not from the rules, but from the shadows. New inmates learn quickly. If you want to last here, you play by these hidden rules. Refuse to play, and you pay the price. And one night, an inmate who broke those rules learns that lesson in blood. The midnight payback. The block is quiet, lights dim for the night. From the outside, it looks calm, but calm on Rikers is a mask. An inmate who refused to pay a debt lies on his bunk, half asleep. Suddenly, his cell door bursts open. Two masked figures rush in, fists and makeshift blades flashing. The attack is fast, silent, and merciless. By the time officers arrive, the attackers are gone, melted back into the darkness. The victim lies bleeding, staring at the ceiling, gasping for air. He doesn't call out names. He doesn't point fingers. He knows better. The message is loud, even in silence. On Rikers, debts aren't forgiven. They're collected. And what no one will tell you is this. Sometimes, the fear of payback is worse than the attack itself. Guards in the game. People on the outside imagine officers as the ones fully in control. But inside Rikers, the line isn't that clear. Some guards keep their heads down, just trying to finish their shifts. But others get pulled into the same hidden economy that runs the blocks. Contraband slips through locked gates, cigarettes, drugs, even phones. Not always smuggled by inmates, sometimes carried in by the very people paid to stop it. Whispers spread fast. That officer works with them. That one takes money. That one looks the other way. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows. On Rikers, trust is a rare thing. It's a fragile balance until one night it breaks. Riot in the block. It starts with a search. Officers storm a housing unit, flipping mattresses, tossing lockers, looking for contraband. To them, it's routine. To the inmates, it feels like war. Anger boils over. A cup of water, or maybe it's something worse, is thrown in an officer's face. In seconds, chaos ignites. Inmates bang on doors, some throwing whatever they can grab. Officers swing batons, shouting for backup. Radios scream with static. The block becomes a battlefield of fists, shouts, and flashing lights. When it's over, men are dragged out in cuffs, faces bruised, shirts ripped. The air reeks of sweat and anger. Both sides retreat, but nothing feels resolved. On Rikers, riots don't just happen because of violence. They happen because of trust and how quickly it shatters. The box. After the riot, several inmates are sent to the box, Rikers solitary confinement. The box is a small, concrete cell no bigger than a walk-in closet. A metal bed, a toilet, and 4 walls. For 23 hours a day. That's it. No voices. No sunlight. Just silence, broken only by the buzz of fluorescent lights and the sound of your own thoughts. At first, some think it's a break from the chaos, but the silence wears them down. Hours stretch into days. Days blur into weeks. The walls feel like they're closing in. In the box, time itself becomes punishment. But for some, the box isn't just isolation. It's danger. Because sometimes, even in solitary, you're not alone. The phantom in the walls. Late at night, an inmate in the box hears scratching. At first, he thinks it's a rat. But then, a whisper. A voice, low and urgent, coming through the vents. Another inmate, locked in the next cell, is passing a message. Not just words, warnings, deals, threats. Even from behind steel doors, the network of Rikers never sleeps. One night, the whisper changes. A promise of payback. Hours later, guards rush in to find blood smeared across a cell wall. An inmate lies curled on the floor, beaten in ways no one can explain. The doors were locked. No one saw a thing. The message is clear. At Rikers, walls don't keep you safe. Secrets and power move through them like smoke. And it leaves a haunting question. If even solitary isn't safe, then what part of Rikers Island truly is? Minds on the edge. Inside Rikers, punishment isn't only physical. It's mental. Inmates locked in solitary begin to lose their grip on time. Days blur into nights. Weeks feel endless. Some scratch calendars into the wall. Others talk to themselves just to hear a voice. The silence becomes louder than noise. Sleep is broken. Food trays arrive at random hours. Lights flicker on and off. It's not torture you can see. It's the kind you feel deep inside your head. Whispers spread of men who leave solitary more broken than when they entered. Some never recover. And that's the part no one outside the island is ever told. The mind becomes a battlefield. But every broken mind also sparks something else. An eruption of madness. Breakdown in the block. One evening, after weeks in isolation, an inmate snaps. He screams until his voice cracks, pounding his fist against a steel door. Guards shout back, ordering him to stop, but the noise only grows louder. He smears food across the walls, hurls his mattress into the door, and begins shouting names no one understands. Other inmates join in, pounding, yelling, laughing. The entire tier turns into a storm of sound, chaos echoing down the hallway. Officers rush in, shields up, dragging men out one by one. The scene is raw, frantic, and terrifying. And when it's finally over, the silence returns, heavier, darker, like the calm after a thunderstorm. At Rikers, the mind itself becomes the most dangerous weapon. And what's uncovered here isn't just violence. It's how the island breaks people without ever lifting a hand. The stories that never leave. On the outside, the world hears numbers, reports of assaults, statistics on violence, official statements that make Rikers sound like just another jail. But inside, the stories don't match the paperwork. Inmates whisper about beatings that never made it to reports. Families talk about visits cut short with no explanation. Even officers admit off the record that what gets written down often isn't what really happened. Files vanish. Cameras malfunction. Incidents are marked as resolved, even when scars say otherwise. The island has a way of keeping its darkest secrets buried. It's not silence by choice. It's silence enforced. And anyone who tries to break it risks everything. The Whistleblowers' punishment. One officer, fed up with what he's seen, tries to speak out. He reports an attack that was supposed to be ignored. He tells investigators about smuggled contraband and secret deals. At first, he feels relieved. Finally, the truth is leaving the walls. But then the pushback begins. Shifts are changed. His locker is trashed. Fellow officers turn cold. Inmates glare at him differently now. Someone tipped him off. One night, his car tires are slashed in the staff parking lot. A note is left under his wiper. Keep your mouth shut. The message is as loud as a riot. At Rikers, even those meant to enforce the rules can't escape the island's code of silence. And this is the darkest truth of all. Rikers doesn't just cage inmates. It cages the truth itself. Families in the shadows. For every inmate inside Rikers, there's a family waiting outside, mothers, fathers, children who ride buses and ferries just for a few minutes of visitation. They hear the official stories. Everything is under control. Safety is a priority. But when they see their loved ones walk into the visitation room with bruises, limping, or too quiet to speak, they know the truth doesn't match the reports. Some write letters to city officials. Most never get replies. Others stand outside the gates holding signs, begging for answers. But the island keeps its secrets locked tight. Families are left with questions, pain, and silence. And then, the island makes itself felt beyond those families, in the heart of New York City. Violence spills into the streets. When inmates finally leave Rikers, many carry more than just the weight of their sentence. They carry scars, physical, emotional, and mental. Some come out angrier than when they went in. Others carry grudges that don't end at the gates. Violence that began inside sometimes erupts again on city streets. Unfinished feuds reignited, debts collected, anger unleashed. Police reports show fights, shootings, and stabbings tied back to the island. But the papers rarely print the full connection. What happens on Rikers doesn't stay on Rikers. It spreads, unseen, into neighborhoods, families, and lives across New York. And that's what no one will tell you. Rikers Island doesn't just haunt the people trapped inside its walls. It haunts the entire city.